Hey guys, Ojo Biden here, bringing you guys our APA LC Evo Season 4 Finals Battle. If you guys haven't seen weeks 1 through semifinals, there's a big movie I uploaded a couple days ago with all those games, so definitely go check it out. We're on the verge of a perfect season. I believe that would, be 10-0 up to this point, because 8 weeks, 2 games after that. So I'd really like to take home the finals, but instead of just doing this by myself, giving only my perspective, I'm actually joined by my opponents in finals. Inversify, do you want to say hi?
Hey, this is Inversify. I coach the Air Force Corps Knights and the finals opponent here.
Yeah, so we're gonna go over a little bit more in-depth finals because, especially with how short Little Cup games are, this would probably be like a 10-minute video of how we're doing it by myself. I'd say, okay, this happened, game was over in 15 turns, whatever it may be. So I figured, and Inverse figured that it would be a little bit more fun and interesting to go over both of our builds and kind of give both of our thought process in the game, because especially in big games like this, there's a lot going through the noggin and things like that throughout it. So it'll definitely be a good time. I'm going to go over my team really quick. You can see the matchup above, our team versus Inversifies. I'm not going to read off the whole thing, but I'll generally go over my team really quick and tell you guys what my game plan going into this guy was. We have a Choice Scarf Froakie, tried and true, really the best Froakie set that you can bring in my opinion. Surf, Hydro Pump, U-turn, and Ice Beam. I thought it was very, very good in this game because, one, it was a scarf for that at least sped tie the Pikipek, which is something that I was a little pretty worried about. It was a scarf for that tied a +1 Carvanha, and it was something that outspeed Magby, which I really struggle with Magby in my opinion, at least switching into it over the course of the game. I had things like Geodude, but I expected Geodude to be very, very pressured. So I figured that would be a nice aspect of it, and it was a good revenge killer in that sense, and a good endgame win con if we could chip down things like Pharaoh Seed and things like Goldeen. We also have our Pawniard rocking out with Chople. We're just SD3 attacks. It does pretty darn solid in this game. The reason we're Chople on this set is in the instance of a Mach Punch from Magby. I feel like I can pretty comfortably call that play out, even if I don't have webs up, which we do have webs on the team. And webs are a pretty important aspect of the team, but we'll get there when we get to the Dewpider. But even if I'm in an instance where I'm in against a Magby, I'm up at +2, and it's coming in trying to revenge me with Sucker Punch, I feel pretty comfortable living that Mach Punch as long as I'm at a sufficient health and clicking Knock Off and knocking that thing out. Obviously can't really Sucker Punch in that scenario, but I feel like I'm pretty comfortable making that call most of the time, at the very least. Then we have an Eviolite Croagunk. It does really well in this game as well. We're just Nasty Plot with Sludge Wave, Vacuum Wave, Dark Pulse. Again, does really well. It's a good pivot into something like Carvanha and kind of forcing it to either click Psychic Fangs, predicting us to come in, or us being immune to liquidation and flip turn, and then, you know, being able to chew up crunches and things like that. Force it out with a Vacuum Wave, which is really nice. If we get up a Nasty Plot, we really kind of do punch through this team really, really well. Vacuum Wave is very valuable to just clean the end game, and Sludge Wave kind of rips through the team with webs up and rocks up and things like that. We have our Rocker next in Geodude. It's a very simple mon. It pivots into the what do you call it? Pikipek, especially if it's a Choice Scarf variant. We have to be careful about non-choice variants or clicking Bullet Seed, but it does what it's supposed to do. It gets up rocks, it clicks Strong Earthquakes and Rock Blast and things like that, what it's usually going to do. We have a Dratini, which is actually going to be my lead in this game. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we get into the battle, but we're just a Berry Juice variant with Dragon Pulse, Flamethrower, Surf, and Extreme Speed. Again, we're here to kind of be an annoying nuisance early game. Not a lot Ukos us, and we do a sizable chunk to everything else. And then kind of the glue piece to the entire team in Eviolite. Pretty bulky, but pretty offensive Dewpider with Scald, Giga Drain, Bug Buzz, and Sticky Web. Does really good this game. And if you look at Inverse team, and I'm sure he'll talk about it when he builds his team, my whole team is kind of functioning around getting up webs and putting on a lot of pressure, because his only removal is going to be something like Pikipek, and if Pikipek is packing Defog, that means it's lacking key coverage for the rest of my team, whether that be probably not Flying Stab, but something like Bullet Seed or Brick Break, or potentially U-turn, or whatever it may be, or even a knockoff, you know, for different berries or different sashes or anything like that, or any just pivots in general. I figured it was really, really important to make sure I had webs. So one, get that information on the Pikipek, or two, just keep webs up the entire game and keep a lot of pressure on. Okay, I rambled about my team. Let's go over yours. You can see my screen still, right?
I can.
Okay, cool. So just let me know, and I'll move on to the next one in between. But we're on Magby.
Yeah, I had the same thought as you. Obviously, Magby did a ton of work in this matchup, with Flare Blitz, Thunder Punch, Mach Punch, and Dual Chop, and it really the only thing that was taking hits from this was Geodude, but I didn't really want to run Cross Chop. I was considering that over Dual Chop, but I thought Dratini might be a little bit more of a threat. So I decided to run the Dual Chop there, especially because like as you said, I didn't have great answers to webs, and I knew you were very, very likely to bring it. So I tried to build a team that was very webs resistant. So
Mhm.
pretty much my only mons that I'm looking to actually be fast were Magby with boots and Pigapek, which is obviously immune to webs because it's a flying type. And I figured boots was it just made a ton of sense in the matchup just to not have to worry about webs, not have to worry about like, oh, I need to bring in Pigapek to defog or even run that move,
Mhm.
and not worry about Rock's chip either for things like Pawniard, Sucker Punch, potentially.
Oh yeah.
And so, I mean, the spread is pretty obvious because what else are you going to run on a physical Magby? The moves are pretty obvious. It's just the best moves to hit. And then I brought Ferroseed as well because with the double water types, definitely wanted to bring my
Triple,
water
you're
resist.
sleeping on my boy Magikarp. I was thinking about it.
I was sleeping on the Magic. Um, two good water types in Froakie and Dupare. So I knew just bring it as my rocker. I mean, Ferrocene's such a good mon. It's going to be good in most matchups. Obviously, it's extremely good against Meowth, which was nice. So not that I thought you were going to bring it just because of how good Ferroseed was against it, but it's nice that even if you did bring it, it almost invalidates Meowth. The only thing it can really do is U-turn for momentum, as well
Oh,
as just generally being a pretty good Pokemon.
this was something that
Sadly,
was really cool that I didn't notice before too. The revenge tech. I was more so worried about
I
like Thunder
did.
Wave on my Ponder or something like that. I didn't even realize that this got revenge, and it kind of just nukes through any like non-EVO Pawniard, especially after a knockoff hits me or something like, or I hit a knockoff and take Iron Barbs and stuff like that. So that was a really clean tech.
Yeah, I was thinking about bringing Grass Move, but I was thinking I brought Gyro Ball as well because I was kind of scared of substitute Krogunk. So in the event that you bring, say I do live a knockoff from Pawniard and kill it
Mhm.
with a revenge, and then you go into Krogunk, I really didn't want you to be a substitute variant and just set it up on my face and me not be able to do anything.
Mhm.
That's why I didn't really want to bring Thunder Wave here,
That's
and I
definitely fair.
didn't feel like I could fit a grass move, but I felt like that was fine because I think knockoff was pretty good into both of your waters anyway.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Um, and then moving on to the Machop, it's kind of just Machop's just a very good Pokemon to bring, and obviously with the Pawniard, I'm gonna bring my fighting type against it,
Oh yeah.
and I didn't think your fighting resists were like all that great. Obviously, like basically like Krogunk, Rowlet, and Jupiter, and obviously
That
Machop has the coverage to hit those Pokemon.
that was something I
So
struggled with like all season was switching into fighting or like ground and rock, and so many like big offensive threats in Little Cup have some kind of combination of these or at least two of these. Edgequake kind of railed me because as good as Dewpider is, I realized it's not as bulky as I thought it was. And there was so often where I was like, all right, Earthquake, pivot Earthquake, then I gotta get out on the rock side because I don't even live it anymore. I completely just died to it. So Mons like Machop and Crabrawler and things like that, like the low tier fightings, gave me way more trouble than I thought. So, and especially when you pack on something like Earthquake for Krogunk. So, definitely a
right,
super obnoxious mon. I was not excited to pivot into Machop. Okay,
just
next
went
up.
for the
Oh,
just went for the Violet there just to make it as bulky as possible.
mhm.
And I had two other Pokemon that wanted Berry Juice more, so
Oh, for sure.
well, really three because I almost wanted to run Berry Juice on Ferroseed, but I decided to bring Berry Juice Aron. It's just another Pokemon that was fairly hard to switch into for you.
Mhm.
Um, brought the Endurer with the Sturdy and Berry Juice because I knew it was fairly likely that rocks would get up at some point and my Sturdy would be broken with me not having any hazard removal.
And
And
Edgequake plus
Aron
fighting
really,
again.
right, exactly. Honestly, I'm not even sure if I needed to run Body Press. I might have been able
Mhm.
to run Rock Polish there instead, but
Mhm.
I don't believe a Earthquake kills Pawniard. So that was my kind of thought process there, in
Oh yeah,
that Body Press would be able to kill it.
for sure.
But yeah, just three attacks to hit hard. And honestly, like if you look at the rest of my team that I didn't bring, Carvana's matchup was just awful between Krogunk's Vacuum Wave. If I don't run Chovel Berry,
Hmm.
I'm just gonna die. Dratini has extreme speed. I already talked about how Meowth has a bad matchup, but even ignoring the
It's its
Meowth, that's already
existence,
enough
yeah. Hmm.
priority. Obviously, like, trying to guess whether to switch into, or whether to, you're gonna switch into Krogunk and maybe click a Psychic Fangs. Like, it doesn't even Oko Pawniard with anything because it doesn't
Hmm.
get any fighting moves.
It lacked
So,
Oko prowess on like almost everything on my team, unless you were a Life Orb. And then again, if you're Life Orb, you just get picked off by priority pretty quickly.
yeah,
And then that plus
exactly.
webs kind of just made it to where it would be really hard to get a Carvana going unless you had a way to prevent webs, and you felt very comfortable switching around the priority. Now I did kind of telegraph priority because if I get that play wrong, I'm kind of screwed against the what do you call it?
Right.
But again, vacuum wave,
You just
extreme
have so many
speed, and even
options.
and
Yeah,
even Sucker on Poniard probably does like 50 to Carvana because it's a Carvana,
it
you know.
does.
So
It does. I think I ran the calc when I was prepping and it did like 60, and I was like, yeah, there's no chance, no chance I can bring this, which sucks being your round one Pokemon, but sometimes when the matchup's not good, the matchup's not good.
oh yeah, for sure.
And then Elgium and Duskull both completely sucked against Pawniard,
Hmm.
and it was really hard to bring them. I almost brought the Shinx, but I didn't love giving you free switches into Geodude, which I didn't love switching into. I mean, Machop can switch into it decently well,
That's
but
unrecoverable
not
too.
repeatedly.
Yeah, it's unrecoverable, and it makes you weaker to Pawniard too.
Exactly. So it was kind of between Shinx and I guess kind of Aron for my last slot,
Oh yeah.
but I thought Aron would be able to do a lot more.
Hmm.
And then, all right, moving on, we have Goldeen. which is
Neutral
just
nature,
another,
Goldeen.
I was neutral nature just because I ran the Ice Beam. I was a little bit scared of Rowlet,
Hmm.
and there wasn't really any stat. There wasn't any stat that I really wanted to lower. There wasn't any one stat that I really wanted to boost. So I felt good with the neutral nature, just keeping it fairly even across the board. It was pretty good.
Even
Pokemon
the
for
speed
first fight
tier.
knockoff.
The speed tier
Right.
was important too because it lets you like outspeed Modest and Adamant Dewpider and things like that, but it also lets you outspeed like a max speed Geodude, which I don't think I was Jolly, but I definitely have run max speed Jolly Geodude before just because its bulk doesn't matter in some matchups with Sturdy Juice and things like that. And really, Geodude its bulk didn't matter too much in this game. It's just I wanted the power from Adamant, and I think it was like some under webs calcs is what I hit at 11 to like outspeed certain things, but yeah, I didn't need the bulk because I'm not too KO by things like Scarf Bravebird anyways, and I died of Bravebird into Bullet Seed anyways, and things like that. I take physical Magby hits the same. I get 2 KO by Cross Chop even if I have a lot of Fizz Def and shit. So, it being 13 is actually like an important speed tier, and obviously you don't want to lower your bulk. So, Neutral Nature was really cool.
Right. And then the last Pokemon I have, Pikipek. I decided to bring it as a dedicated lead with Focus Sash. Also Adamant Nature, because I didn't think that you would run Jolly Pawniard. I didn't really see any reason for you to run it.
Did run
I didn't think
Adamant too,
Shinx
yeah.
was really a big deal. So I tried, and I figured Froakie would most likely be Choice Scarf. So I tried to be a little bit greedy there and run the Adamant Pikipek with, what's it called? Focus Sash. And I liked it as a lead a lot because obviously, number one, it prevents webs. Number two, it prevents rocks because Bullet Seed, especially from Adamant, is going to definitely kill a Geodude even through
Very juice.
Berry Juice because of the skill link. And you just didn't have a ton of great switch ins to it. And I was hoping I could catch you off guard a little bit with the set. Obviously, Focus Sash is not a very common set, and maybe if you are calculating the damage and you're seeing that I'm not taking Life Orb, you might assume that I'm Scarf because it's very common Pikipek set. And then I might be able to, predict the switch into a safe move and hit you hard.
Oh, for sure. No, it definitely was pretty solid. And Drill Pick kind of also really appreciated the Adamant power boost. It's not Brave
For
Bird.
sure.
It's still punching
For sure.
through a pretty big
I
hole.
did bring Drill Peck because
Obviously, you don't want to take
in the-
recoil.
right, no recoil for Focus Sash. And I didn't really even need to click Fighting Stab against very much. Like, I think Adamant Drill Peck still mostly kills Dupiters and Krogunks.
It probably
And if not, it puts them so low.
Let's check. Because we also do have the calc pulled up, which I'll move this stuff out of the way in a second. Yeah, Adamant Drill Peck blows away. Wait, why do I have a check button? It's Eviolite. So it blows away non-Eviolite, and then, like, to this Eviolite variant that I am, it needs, like, a max roll to Oko, I think it is. But, like, even then, it's not a risk you're really taking on lead unless I'm Sash anyways. If I'm Sash or Koba Berry, I might stay in and either get up webs or trade and get off a Scald or something like that. Most likely just get up webs, but even then, that's not a good bring on my part because you can still technically beat Defog, and I don't know that. So,
and I think a lot of times against the Jupiter lead anyway, I'm probably clicking knockoff because I'm not expecting you to stay in.
And if I'm Sash or Koba anyways or something like that, and you can either kill me the next turn. Yeah, no, for sure. And then against Krogunk, you have a 75% chance to kill Eviolite. Now I'm not super bulky, but like still pretty good odds in your favor.
Right. Especially if I like already have rocks up or something. Not that that's likely in a lead scenario, but you know, bring it out and comes back in.
Oh, for sure. Okay. That being said, we could jump right into it. Oh, let me fix the dimensions. Oops. As we're going to go ahead and jump into it. Again, we're going to take this one decently slow. I'm going to go ahead and start it, and I'll kind of talk about the lead situation first, and you can kind of, again, talk a little bit more about your lead Picky Peck. So we are going to see the lead Picky Peck right here, and I'm going to lead off with my Dratini. And in a lot of mocks, I felt pretty comfortable leading Dratini in the sense that I felt like it put on pretty good immediate offensive pressure versus you, in the sense that Dragon Pulse plus either Flamethrower or Surf kind of 2-hit KO'd or chunked your whole team. I think the only thing it doesn't 2-hit KO is probably like Machop, which again is unrecoverable, or Goldeen potentially. But again, I'll take chip on Goldeen wherever I can get it, considering I have like the double water core that's really good offensively outside of the Goldeen. So I was pretty comfortable just staying in and getting a Dragon Pulse off. But then I pulled up the calc and I looked at Piggy Peck's Brave Bird. Hold on, let me put up Brave Bird. Now, this is Adamant, but even just Jolly Brave Bird, which is what I was calculating. Adamant guaranteed kills me. But Jolly, I was like, I live this, because I think I lived it in a mock at one point. And I was like, this is fine. It was an 81% chance to kill. So this lead Picky Peck put me in a terrible position. I did not lead very well into this in general. Maybe I should have led something like Froakie and you turned out, but I wanted to kind of combat like a Pharaoh Seed Hazards lead, or like an Aeron lead or something like that, where I could like Dragon Pulse into Surf, or like Flamethrower into Surf. Same thing with Pharaoh Seed, I could just Flamethrower it immediately. So this was a pretty tough positioning for me, and a pretty good one for you.
Yeah, I was, obviously I brought the Sash Picky Peck, and I knew I was going to lead with it, and here I was looking, and I do threaten very hard with the Brave Bird unless you're a Violite. So I decided to just click knockoff here, because I figure if I'm clicking knockoff, always 2-hit KOing you. It really doesn't matter what set you are, because I'm going to knock off your Violite or I'm going to knock off your Berry Juice. And obviously it's a very good move to switch in, or for anything you might switch in, you know, getting rid of items early is obviously huge.
Oh yeah, for sure. And obviously I'm going to take a ridiculous amount on my Geodude, 42 from that. And I think that did tip me off to Adamant in the actual game, and I was like, oh damn, maybe he's Adamant Scarf. At this point, Focus Sash wasn't really going through my mind. I was thinking maybe he's just like a lead Eviolite variant to live a Dupiter hit and then get off, you know, a big... I don't know. I just wasn't... What do you call it? Sash wasn't clicking in my mind, because I was like, but Brave Bird. So the knockoff play definitely made sense, obviously. And from this point, I'm obviously in range of a Bullet Seed, and I kind of tunneled on that as well, because it's the move that you're probably bringing to hit Geodude. But in my head, I was thinking maybe Scarf, maybe Defog, so either has U-Turn or Defog, Bullet Seed, Brave Bird. And knockoff was kind of like the coverage, the 5 moves circulating my brain, and I completely blanked at this point. And you made a good mid ground, obviously, knowing you don't need to click Bullet Seed at this point. And you can just click a free Brick Break as I make the pivot out into my Pawn Yard. And this is ridiculously tough, because I could have bluffed Scarf at this point if you did go for a Bullet Seed. I could have obviously threatened you out with like a Life Orb Sucker Punch or something like that, and I probably had a pretty free knockoff from that point, at least from my perspective. Now, obviously, you're Sash, so you're more than likely to stay in. But this Brick Break is going to put me in a position where I feel as if I kind of need to Sucker Punch. I do thankfully live due to the Choppleberry, but this was a really good start to the game for you, for sure, at least. I felt like I was incredibly on the back foot.
And I was very close to going Magby here, because I obviously, like, the Sucker is very likely here,
Hmm.
but I just felt like, Magby was pretty much my win condition, and if I switched it in and you predicted it and went for a
Got that play
knockoff,
wrong.
then I
Yeah.
really felt like I had almost no chance to win. So
Hmm.
I knew I obviously lived with the sash, and so I just decided to sack some pick-a-peck health in order to take out the Poniard.
And it kind of ensures your team is just like knock proof. There's not really much on my team that can knock in this matchup. Now, Krogunk can, but I don't think Knock Krogunk is a great bring in this matchup. And everything else, so your Eviolite and your Machop is staying, your Eviolite on your Ferroseed is staying, the Juice on your Goldeen, the Juice on your Aeron, things like that. Poniard, even if it didn't like just necessarily sweep and win the game, it spreading knockoffs was like really important to this endgame. So like being able to knock this out was still pretty clutch for you. But one thing I do want to mention though, and something that was really clutch for me, is the fact that you stayed in, obviously, not risking the Magby, which makes sense. But it's going to put this thing at 20%, which means if I can force this thing out and get up rocks a little bit later, it's not a Pokemon anymore. It is gone, guaranteed, because there's no form of removal on the rest of your team. So the only other instance is you coming hard in on my Geodude as I set up rocks, and if that's the case, so what? I sack off Geodude, and then I either force you out or revenge you with something else, because I do have means of revenging a 20% Piggyback. So, like, there was positives on both sides. Obviously, my Poniard's gone. No more knock fodder, or no more knocking for me. But it was really clutch to be able to kind of force this thing out. I am going to go Froakie, as I feel like it pretty easily does force this thing out, and it's going to allow me to get a little bit of good offensive initiative. I calced, I believe U-turn did kill from here. Oop, I'm going to the wrong calc.
I would be surprised if it didn't.
Yeah, I think I remember running this calc because I was pretty scared, and I knew that you weren't Eviolite at that point, obviously, because I clicked Sucker. Yeah, I did 20 min, actually, like, to your spread, which was, like, 36 defense, and I think that's what I ended up calcing, because usually Piggy Pig gets, like, 36 defense left over, and it's EVs and things like that. So again, I felt very comfortable just going for a U-turn, take a little bit of Iron Bars, but it's also going to, again, chip down that Ferroseed, or if you're, for some reason you decide to go into Goldeen, chip those Mons down and put them in range of Froakie a little bit later on, of Dewpider a little bit later on, or chip things down for Dratini, Krogunk, things like that. So felt pretty comfortable just going for this U-turn, and Ferroseed does come in, obviously, and I'm going to be able to get a big U-turn out. And I think, yeah, about 20%, which doesn't seem like much, but again, it's not recoverable. Typically, you also don't see Leech Seed in Little Cup as well, because the HP numbers are so low, you don't get a lot back, and it's a pretty passive move, and such an offensive metagame. So this is all, in my mind at least, unrecoverable, and I get into my Dratini here, which is super nice for me. I'm going to go ahead and click Dragon Pulse as you go into the Goldeen, and this thing is definitely scary. No, yeah, I definitely clicked Flamethrower, so it was a good mid-ground. Obviously, being able to get in on said Flamethrower, so it's really the only check right here. As I believe I go for a Dragon Pulse, and I do a lot of damage, but you do end up being Juice, which is definitely unfortunate.
I feel like I ran Berry Juice Goldeen like every single week this season.
Oh yeah, and it's another one that just doesn't get O-code by anything. It feels
exactly.
Like.
So
Okay.
yeah, I just went for the knockoff here again. It was very free. Krogunk doesn't really want to be switching into it, because then I can hit it with a hard drill run afterwards. Obviously, getting rid of an item. I knew that I can pretty much 2-hit KO Dratini with most things. So knocking off the Berry Juice was pretty clutch to allow me to get that 2-hit KO by, obviously you're not going back up to full health.
And getting that juice back. Oh yeah. No, knock was definitely a play. My team in general is, again, another thing I noticed, like, because I had such an offensive team this season, and I talked about it in the last video I made, whereas, like, I had to keep such, like, crazy offensive pressure and play so aggressively the entire season, because my team had no... And again, in Little Cup, it's not going to happen a lot. You're not really going to have a good defensive backbone. It's such an offensive metagame. But I didn't have great pivots into, like, anything at all. And again, it comes up later in this game of me just not switching into certain type combinations and certain coverage combinations that are, like, really, really common. And the move knockoff in general just kind of 6-0'd my team. Even, like, Poniard, which switches into it, it doesn't like losing its item. Nothing does in Little Cup, but my team had nothing to, like, really, really switch into that move well, in conjunction with, like, ground coverage, which a lot of knockmons do end up getting.
Like, just a
like
comparison, like, my team, like, Ferroseed doesn't love losing its item sometimes, but, it can take a knock for sure. Machop, obviously, is a pretty good knock answer. Even Goldeen, especially after it loses its Berry Juice. If you're switching into a move and they don't click knockoff on the switch, and now you got your Berry Juice, and now, well, it kind of sucks to click knockoff, because Goldeen's just going to come in.
Gonna soak it up, yeah.
Grab momentum with flip turn or knock off your items.
Or even Thief. Doesn't it get Thief as well?
I don't remember.
But regardless, you have a little bit better of sponges than I do. So knock and ice beam was definitely like a pretty free combination here. And in my head, I knew knockoff was coming out, and I don't want to lose that on something like Croagunk, which can still stomach hits from things like the Aeron. It can lift an EQ pretty easily, which is really important at this point, because if you are like a rock polish variant of Aeron, I can like super lose to that really quick in this game. Like things can get out of hand very fast. My Geodude lost its juice. Froakie's not very bulky. My Dratini's almost dead. And I take a little bit of chip on my Dewpider, or like rocks go up or something like that, and I can just like raw lose to that mon. So letting Croagunk get knocked is just kind of another alleyway to lose to that. Same thing with Machop. It clicking Earthquake is not good, or just clicking like Scarf Close Combat or Scarf Dynamic Punch can get really out of hand really fast again once I lose that item, or if I switch in and take a Drill Rod, whatever it might be. So it was probably in my best interest of staying with Dratini here. What I didn't expect was to get to it KO'd and not get as much damage as I wanted off on this thing, because you do end up having the Ice Beam.
Yeah, it's funny too, because I only really brought it because I didn't know what else to do to hit Rowlet.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized that I think knockoff was a roll because you didn't have an item anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, actually, Ice Beam does more. So I figured you were probably just going to stay in to get damage here.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you don't, I felt like Goldeen, especially at full health, was very good into everything else that you had.
Mm-hmm. Nothing could
you
OHKO it on my
switched in.
team. Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. So it basically netted KO from there, which was really, really annoying from a mon that doesn't really exert necessarily like insane offensive pressure. It's just a mon that's really annoying to switch around. But something that's good though is this, like, letting this Dratini goes down allows me to get to my Dewpider, and that just does allow me free webs. There's nothing that this Goldeen can do to like just stop me from setting up my webs, at least as far as I can know. I don't believe it gets any taunt shenanigans. You can bounce, which one doesn't even OHKO me. But I know you're not like a power variant, so I don't even have to risk like para and things like that. So I don't think there's anything else, right?
I don't believe so either. I don't think it gets any rock moves.
Mm-hmm. So I can just go ahead and get up these webs right here, and you don't necessarily threaten me. I can, if you want to stay in and attack too and like knock off, that's fair. But I can always Giga Drain or Bug Buzz the turn after and do a ton of damage and get a lot of that back, which is obviously very nice for me too. So
right,
you are gonna knock off.
I didn't want to click Flip Turn here either because I was a little bit scared that you might run Water Absorb in the matchup.
Especially with Carvanha too.
Yeah, exactly.
And Water Bubble wasn't like needed. It was nice for
exactly.
like Scald damage and Scald Birds and things like that. But really, Bug Buzz was like my best stab in this game. Bug Buzz, and I think I had Ice Beam as well. I don't remember. I literally just went over my team. But you're going to go into the Pharaoh Seed this turn, as you do end up Giga Draining here. So Pharaoh's going to come in, which is definitely unfortunate for me, as this Pokemon's really, really tough for me to break. But what I do think here is I think it's a little less likely that you're going to go for something like a Bullet Seed or whatever it may be. And if you do, I sack off my Geodude, so what? I get into my Croagunk and I'm able to exert some offensive pressure. But I kind of see this as my opportunity to get up rocks, because if you end up to elect getting up your own rocks, at least have some sort of hazard pressure on my side of the field, I feel like it's pretty clutch for me to be able to get into my Geodude and get up my own rocks. Or if you want to go for like a knockoff or a Gyro or whatever it may be, Geodude is, one, probably my best sack, but two, also gives me some good positioning offensively with rocks, kills that Picky Peck coming in, things like that. So I believe I do make the pivot out, into Geodude, as you do go for, just a knockoff.
Because I was trying to hit the Croagunk on the switch. I was thinking like, oh, you're thinking I'm going to get up rocks, so you're going to go into Croagunk. You decided to go for Geodude to try to get up rocks. It's also a good play. I was just trying to preemptively hit the Croagunk because I knew that I didn't want to stay in with Pharaoh Seed against the Croagunk because of obviously I still need it for the Froakie.
And a sub variant could be very scary too if you're
right. Exactly.
No, that's definitely fair. And yeah, I another thing I was fearing was kind of like that random Thunder Wave coming out on the Switch, because it's also not a bad play to Dewpider. What is Dewpider doing to threaten you, really? You still have an item right now. Like, I haven't knocked off an Eviolite, you haven't popped any juice, so like Dewpider's not really doing anything sizable. I'm kind of just throwing it away for no reason at that point if I do end up making that play. So I think it's a little bit more advantageous to go into my Geodude to cover those grounds and then maybe get that free switch into Croagunk. And thankfully, it ends up paying off.
This was just a terrible play for me. Like, I really just should have gone Pick-a-Peck here instead of just basically sacking Goldeen for no reason. Because obviously I'm going to underspeed you with the webs up.
Especially with how bulky you were, and I was ridiculously fast on this thing. I don't remember, what did I hit at 11? This is probably important to, like, remember.
think you
Geodude at
hit
11.
things that are
Does
like
that hit?
16 speed.
Yeah, it
It's
was
probably like
16 speed.
fast
So
Machop.
yeah, it
Fast
was like
Machop.
fast Machop,
Or
Shanks. I think it also allowed me to speed tie the 17s if you were max speed. In case. And again, I didn't really need bulk on the Geodude, so we were ridiculously fast this matchup. Obviously, with how
right.
bulky you are, though, we're able to take out the Geodude, take you out with Geodude pretty easy here, which is
Yeah, so
really,
that
really
was
clutch for
that was
me.
just terrible for me. Just because, obviously I go pick a peck, and if you kill me, you kill me. I'm kind of sacking him on either way, but I'm
Mhm,
just throwing away like another potential Froakie answer. And
mhm.
now, like, my pick a peck doesn't even switch into rocks anymore. And like we said, I have no removal, so I could have at least gone pick a peck and then claimed to kill here.
Mhm.
And yeah, just not a smart play for me there.
Oh,
But now
for
I know that with Geodude weakened like this, Magby just comes in and claims a free kill. So
that was something I was realizing, and seeing the boots really bummed me out because in my head I'm like, yeah, I don't switch into Magby anymore, but it's slower than everything at this point. Everything else on my team either lives a hit or outspeeds it and kills it, and like Froakie, and then what do you call it? I believe no, Dewpider wouldn't outspeed it, but it has a chance to live hits from where it's at depending on your spread and what you are. And then my Krogunk obviously can live a hit or just, nuke you with a Sludge Wave, which is really, really nice. So I wasn't super worried. So seeing the webs here, or the boots here, was really, really scary. And at this point, obviously, I don't have anything I could switch in. I was thinking potentially Cross Chop right here, and obviously not the most reliable move in the world. So I was kind of fingers crossed, hoping for a miss here, and then I can just get a free Earthquake nuke off on this, plus whatever else wants to come in afterwards. So I was hoping I'd get a little bit more value out of this Geodude, but you do show the Dual Chop, which was definitely a cool bring for the Dratini, in case I was like,
yeah.
in case it was like DD mixed with Flamethrower. That could have been really scary for you after you took a lot of chip from on Ferroseed, because I think my team
Yeah.
does force good chip on Ferroseed between the double water. So that definitely was a route I was thinking about in prep. I think I originally had DD Dratini on the build before I decided on like a special, or like a
Right.
mixed 4 attacks variant. So
And it was
that.
also just like because
Mhm,
if I didn't bring it and you did have like DD Dratini or just a Dratini in general, it
mhm,
was really annoying for Magby to hit. And
mhm,
I
otherwise.
felt confident that I could deal with Geodude with some of my other Pokemon.
Oh yeah, it was definitely forced in just even by just the picky peck. I couldn't really switch into that otherwise or pivot into like a Scarf variant. So I kind of am always forced to make that initial pivot, and then I get knocked, and then I'm like 2 KO'd after rocks. So that's definitely tough, but not the biggest deal in the world. I am gonna get into my Froakie, which allows me good offensive momentum. You can't really sack this thing off at this point, so I am just gonna go ahead and click a pretty darn free U-turn, I believe. Yeah, I do click a U-turn. Again, just chipping down this Ferroseed. I'm taking chip, but I'm also not super worried about any priority coming into me. It would be like Bullet Punch from a Chop, Mach Punch from the Magby, so it's not anything that's going to OHKO me unless I lock into like Ice Beam. At this point, there's no reason to ever click Ice Beam, unless I unless it's a 1v1 scenario with Ferroseed plus, the, what do you call it, the Froakie. Then maybe I can lock it, but not with anything else still around, and I'm able to get in my Croagunk for free here, which is super clutch for me. I won't lie, at this point, I was like, oh shit, I win. Like, the game's over. This is really, really clutch, as I'm going to be able to throw off a very free nasty plot here as you make the Picky Peck sack, which I kind of figured at this point there wasn't probably a better opportunity for you to get the sack and get a free switch into something else. So I figured like the nasty plot was free because you can't sack off the Ferroseed with the double water sitting in the back.
For sure. It was a pretty telegraphed play for me, and I was kind of just hoping that you were a 4 attacks variant, and I saw the nasty plot, and I was definitely very scared as well.
Hmm. And I
Um,
think, yeah, so basically I was looking at the calcs too. Any non-Eviolite variant of Machop dies after rocks. Obviously the Aeron comes in and it dies after rocks to a vacuum wave, I believe, even. And even if you go for like Endure Shenanigans, I live the Earthquake into like a Mach Punch from Magby so I can get off a big vacuum wave, things like that. So there was potential outs for you, I guess. But it wasn't looking super, super hot for you if I did get off this nasty plot. But we are gonna see the Machop come out right here, and I remember I was contemplating going Modest too. Like you told me you were contemplating going the Adamant route on Magby. I was really contemplating going Modest on this set, and I haven't actually looked at this calc yet. I wanted to look Timid versus Modest if it actually changed, because Little Cub is weird, and a lot of the times it just straight up will not change the calc. So you guys are gonna see this is about a 40% chance for me to kill, and if I do, I think the game is largely over, or
yeah.
very much so in my favor to win at that point. But if I was a modest variant, it looks like I had a 75% chance. So that goes up a little bit, but again, I'll still take the odds of 37.5 after rocks, and I don't die to anything this does, so I'm still able to punch a sizable chunk in your team here with just Sludge Wave into Vacuum Wave or whatever else wants to come in. So I am going to go for said Sludge Wave, and I know I outspeed, what do you call it? Do I outspeed Scarf? What is this thing speeds here?
14.
Yeah, I do, because I think that's why I went timid. So I guess I'm running the risk of you speed tying me if I'm modest and you hitting me with like a fat EQ. But even then, and I guess if that's the case, then the same scenario kind of happens where I take this EQ damage and then get revenged by Magby. But I'm able to at least do a ton of damage to this thing, and from here I can just pick it off with a Vacuum Wave. Only unfortunate thing is I obviously can't sweep because you got your Magby.
Right. And at this point too, I really don't need health on Magby because it's not dying to a U-turn from that range from Froakie. It's always dying to any water move that you click anyway. So, I mean, I was perfectly fine with the Vacuum Wave here. Just Thunder Punch is very free because it's 2 water types and a 19% Croagunk that's going to die.
For sure. And it's another reason why Boost was like such a good bring on your end, because at this point obviously you take two rock switch and you die to Vacuum Wave guaranteed. Very easy. I did 71 there, so that would have been the second rock switch in, and you would have been in again a losing position. So the Boost was definitely like, I think like the saving grace of this game on your side is Boots Magby put in like an incredible amount of work, like a ridiculous amount. So I am gonna go down to the Thunder Punch like you said though. And from here, I'm forced into Froakie, and again, I'm forced into a tough turn. Obviously, I don't expect you to want to sack this off, because at this point, it's really your only way of, like, punishing Dewpider. How do I say this? It's your best way of, like, damaging Dewpider without losing to Froakie right afterwards.
Right.
Or being in a tough spot, because if you do end up sacking this thing off, and I go into Dewpider, I get off a Bug Buzz, and yeah, you might 1v1 me, take me out, whatever it may be. Even then, I actually think I might 1v1 you at that point. Just because you're so low and I'm so healthy and you don't have that bug move, and I already lost my item and all that different stuff. Even if, say, you do have, like, you know, the grass move or something like that, I'm able to get off a bunch of Bug Buzzes and then just lock into a water move and win the game. Right. So this thing was kind of needed on your end, and I'm going to go ahead and I believe just go ahead and U-turn, expecting this thing to come out right here.
You surf.
Or do I surf? Oh, no, I do surf. Yeah. Oh, I do surf. Okay, my bad. So, in hindsight, I probably should have U-turned, realizing that this was your end game. But again, I think I went for a little bit more of a safe play. And this is the big turn, I believe, right here, if you want to narrate this turn.
Yeah, so here I was like, there's no way he's staying in here. I'm going to go Magby. I did not calc it because I was like, all right, I knocked off Dewpider's Violite. You know, I doubled into Magby as he goes into Dewpider, and I click Thunder Punch, and I get a kill. And then he only has Froakie left. You know, I can Mach Punch to kill it, and then I have my Endure Aron in the back. And then, of course, the missed prep kind of cost me because I really should have run Adamant Magby. Which would have always killed this Dewpider.
We can look at the calc too here. It was this is a pretty tough roll here. What, I was at 77, right? Sorry, I think that lets me get to, what am I, like 18 or 17? No, 16.
That's
16. So it says 76 right here. But you're gonna see this Thunder Punch from 76 is
no Violite.
No Violite. Bam. That's what it is. That was a 75% chance to kill me, which absolutely sucks. This is a little cup roll in its finest. You can see the damage rolls were 14. There was 4 damage rolls of 14, and then everything above it, 16 and above, there's 1 18 roll. Just completely knocked me out from there. But Adamant guaranteed knocked me out from there. The lowest roll was 16, and that's what HP number I was at. And you kind of touched on it, being Adamant in this game opposed to Jolly. Why do you think you should have been Adamant? Like, and I obviously agree, but like more in depth of like why you should have been Adamant over Jolly.
Basically, if we just go back to the team matchup, so with your speed tiers, you have the 19-point Meowth, which it really doesn't matter if I speed tie with this Pokemon because I didn't even think Meowth was going to come because of Ferroseed pretty much. I just didn't think it had great matchup, and I felt like perfectly fine with it. And 2, even if it did come, pretty much the interactions between Magby and Meowth, they're almost never clicking a move of the same priority tier.
Mm-hmm.
So either Meowth's going to click Fake Out or Faint, which are both, I think it's +3 and +2, respectively. And Magby's probably going to click Mach Punch. And if Meowth can't kill with one of those moves, it's probably going to click like Double Edge or Water Pulse, which are obviously +0. The speed didn't really matter there. Magikarp, I'm not respecting that speed tier ever.
Darn.
And then you have Froakie, which obviously I can run Adamant on. And if you're Scarf, you're going to outspeed me either way. If you're not Scarf, I'm going to outspeed you either way. So I really should have run Adamant here, and it cost me.
Yeah, with it being the same priority brackets, Meowth kind of being dog in the matchup. And then another thing, too, is the ability to just nuke it with a Mach Punch after just it takes, like, one hit from Ferroseed, or not even taking a hit, just, like, clicks Double Edge or clicks Fake Out, because it's probably running Life Orb if it's a Meowth, especially in a matchup like this, where it's kind of, like, just praying for any type of damage whatsoever. Or if I U-turn out and I take Life Orb plus Iron Barbs, plus potential rocks, things like that, I'm already in range of a Mach Punch. I'm a Meowth. I'm not the bulkiest thing in the world. So that was like super, super tough. Because obviously you got really unlucky with the low roll, but like, oh man, the ability to run Adamant in that, it's like a double whammy. That's tough.
It's like, one, I got unlucky, but I can't complain at all because I had the power to not make it rely on luck.
Mm-hmm.
So,
oh yeah, it's just, and it's those small tiny missteps. Yeah, it's those small tiny missteps, and not even just in Little Cup, just like competitive Pokemon in general. Is those small tiny missteps will just 100% derail the entire end game that you could have, pretty easily had or something like that. Because I think obviously you do get that roll, the game's over. Because I can't lock a move and win with Froakie at that point. Maybe I can Hydro Pump, but even then,
there is one very slight. I believe Hydro Pump did kill Ferroseed at this range.
Let me check, because I actually am curious. We haven't run that calc. You were at 34%? It says 33 in the calc, so we'll do whatever that is. And then we'll go Froakie. Hydro Pump. No, I didn't even kill, because you were Eviolite, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it didn't even kill. It just, didn't do enough damage. I had to Ice Beam in order to kill it, and obviously I can't lock Ice Beam. Now, again, this was my out in that end game, right? I have to crit Hydro Pump, which I do kill after rocks with crit Hydro Pump, and then from there, I actually have to miss the turn afterwards, which we thought, well, I have to hit Magby, I have to crit the Ferroseed, and then I have to miss the Aeron, because
I probably would have gone Aeron first, just because my best move with Ferroseed is clicking Knockoff. See, the thing with
I guess that's the case, because then I can't
really kill you in one hit because I don't have a grass move. Yeah, just speaking the turn before this, I should have obviously calced Magby against Dewpider, and I still think that might have been your knockoff.
Yeah, because you didn't need Ferroseed at that point if you get in your I don't know though. You do. Yeah.
Yeah, I probably do, because I don't have a grass. If I had a grass move, I could have just stayed in and clicked knock off. And if I knock off your Scarf, obviously, Magby now outspeeds you.
And then you could have sacked the Aeron instead, and then been in a good position too. Now again, Hydro Pump crits, you're only out.
I mean, what happened happened, and I got punished for maybe a little bit of suboptimal prep.
And the Skull is going to knock this thing out, and Dewpider is going to kind of go on a kill streak right here. This Ferroseed is actually in range because it's, I believe, more physically defensive. Or, it's about the same, but it's not Spadef, I guess, is the way of putting it. And since it wasn't Spadef, that was a guaranteed Oko. And then from here, your last out is going into the Aeron. You are enduring this thing, but I actually end up getting a burn, which is really, really clutch on my end. I don't think...
It didn't matter at all.
Yeah, I think it saved diff, obviously, because my... Dewpider would have died, but you just don't have enough berry juice, obviously.
Exactly, because, you just bring me down to Sturdy again, and I kill you, and then Froakie just clicks literally anything. Because
Surf Ice Beam. Hydro Pump if I'm
feeling
extra crazy.
Yeah,
I don't know. I feel like there's no other way to send off the undefeated season than that. But
the crazy thing is, too, Aeron doesn't even kill you from that range with anything. So I
got 2 shots. I got 2 shots, yeah.
Missed twice.
Oh yeah, but it was definitely a really close game, which was really cool. I felt like you had the early momentum. I think legit. I think the 2 big turning points in the game were, hold on. I think I was really able to break through. again, I was able to get up my rocks, which I think was really important as well. Just kind of chipping things down over time, giving me a guaranteed picky peck, which could have been very, very annoying for the rest of my team. But that plus the what do you call it? The ability to get in my Krogunk and set up that nasty plot and really break through the team was really, really clutch as well. Chip down things like the Meowth, and then obviously this thing not being adamant and getting that really low roll, that 25% kind of sealed me the game. So it was really close, and it came down to RNG, but it's a Little Cup League, so I feel like it's even more likely to end up going that way. I don't know what it is with LC
At least
games.
it wasn't a speed tie, you know?
Yeah, it wasn't
That would've been
LC
terrible.
speed tie, but it was an LC roll, which is crazy. Now, I will say too, it felt like this season too, there was like way more crits than there usually is in LC. I don't know what it is with like the Little Cup format. This season and then like last Clash season was insane hacks wise, and it was almost like infuriating from my side when I was like the one who was lucky all season. I had a couple games go my way. Like I definitely shouldn't have, I had the undefeated season. I definitely shouldn't have beaten Josh week 8. Like that was a lost game. And I wasn't super stressed about losing that one, obviously, because it was like I was 7-0 at that point. He's like
Right.
6-1 or something like that. So potential playoff opponent, build a team in 5 minutes. But I got super lucky that game. There was another game where I got really darn lucky too. But even then, I'm just watching like, oh man, Little Cup. Maybe this is a cursed format, but I'll take the undefeated season. I appreciate you jumping on with me. I think this is a really interesting, kind of way to approach a finals game and look at it from both sides opposed to just my side, so we can kind of see what's going on in both of our minds in such a high stress game. Do you have any more parting words?
Yeah, I was just definitely like to see more content. Like I don't have the capability to record myself, so obviously it's great that you have a great channel. Everyone, make sure you like and subscribe. You know, I'll hit you with the classic YouTuber.
There you go. You get your this is your one time. You get to hit him with it. Yeah. And also let me know, guys, if you want to see more LC content. I kind of talked about it before. I've been thinking about doing LC Wi-Fi over the summer. If for those of you, I know a lot of people kind of just prefer looking at the aesthetics of Wi-Fi, which definitely makes sense when you're looking at content, or it just Little Cup draft stuff in general. I usually upload my runs of these leagues, but it's like a once or twice a year thing. If you guys want to see more consistent LC content, let me know, because I know LC content's like on up right now too, with like the LC Open and stuff like that,
Right.
like Freeze Eye and Aim and
That's a
stuff
big
like that.
reason why I
Uploading.
wanted to make this. I wanted to,
Cash in on a
I
little
think-
bit of that.
I think just like in general, I think Evolution is just like a very premier Little Cup league.
Mhm.
And so for some people that might be a little bit newer to the format, kind of
Yeah.
watch a high stakes match and kind of get both of our thoughts about how to build and how to play a little bit, because it definitely does play different from regular draft.
Oh, for sure. And yeah, I'll link APA's LC server in the description below if you guys want to join it. Again, I might be doing LC Wi-Fi, which is something you could app for. I don't think there will be a season for at least a couple months, probably even longer, knowing Tiro, for LC Evo and stuff like that. But you can definitely stick around, obviously, and kind of pick the brains. I think LC regular division, like division below us, has finals this next week. Or is it this week? No, it's this week. So it might even be by the time I
It
upload.
depends when you upload.
Yeah, I plan on uploading this on Thursday, so maybe it happened already. Knowing that it's a finals game, we're weird. We played it on like a fucking Monday, but most people play their finals games late in the week, so they have more time. So it might be happening in a couple
That
days
way
after
they can
this.
run Adamant Magpies.
That's true. Run a little bit more mocks and be like, I like that roll a little bit better. Or you play 8 mocks and see no meows because it's terrible here, and you're like, I don't need this. But yeah. Done rambling though. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Inversify, for coming out. Drop a like if you enjoyed. Sub if you're new. See you guys in the next one. Later.